I've seen it over and over and over again. Stay away from me. I can do this myself. I don't need help from anybody. And it's that vulnerability that is so scary. It's ego, which is really operating from like a small self. People that are acting out in those types of ways are in pain and they're not able to see it and they aren't able to transform it in some way. Stemming from traumas that we're not even aware are impacting us today, things that happened in the past. Therapy can be very intimate. You share things with your therapist that, you wouldn't have maybe never said before out loud, ever. So it becomes very emotionally intimate. And knowing that you might not see this yet in yourself, but trust that I do. I see the person that you were born to be.
Welcome back to Beyond the Briefcase, where we explore what's real and meaningful behind our titles, our professions, and the lives we're building. Today's guest is someone who knows firsthand what it means to sit with people in their most vulnerable moments and to help them find clarity, confidence, and resilience. Britten is a licensed mental health counselor and master certified addiction professional based right here in Naples, Florida. She's deeply respected for her compassionate, no-nonsense approach to therapy and coaching. From helping high-performing professionals navigate burnout to guiding families through crisis, Britten brings clarity, structure, and humanity to her work. And today, we're digging into the emotional weight many of us carry and what it looks like to lay some of that down, even while life keeps moving. So thank you for coming, Britten.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
So let's go back to the beginning. What led you to this work?
Well, let's see. So it would be, as it goes for lots of people in the healing arts, I would say, it's personal. Through my own path of recovery, I lived a certain lifestyle for a long time that wasn't healthy by any means. It was filled with chaos and dysfunctional relationships with myself, dysfunctional relationships with other people, addictions, things like this. And I reached a breaking point and woke up. I guess
Picked up a lot of books.
I woke up.
Started reading.
I surrendered to the fact that I could not do it by myself, which I tried over and over and over again. And it's just like slamming into a brick wall over and over, thinking I'm going to figure this out on my own. I'm going to make this work. I can do it by myself. And then that was like my breaking point, was understanding like I need to ask for help and then continuously do that every day and throw myself into a new way of thinking that isn't created by my own mind necessarily. Einstein, I guess, has been attributed with saying the same consciousness that created the problem cannot alleviate the problem. I don't know how true that is. That I'm not sure. I haven't done the research on if Einstein said that exactly, but I find that to be so true. I am creating my own problems on a daily basis and letting go of that and understanding that I need something bigger coming in the form of people, nature, self-help books like you're talking about, that guidance that's all around me, the wisdom to gather that from other sources than just my own mind has been transformative. So that's where it started, really. It was my own pain, my own suffering that brought me to like that breaking point that I like to say too, we're not broken, we're broken open.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
Broken open to new ways of seeing the world, my place in the world, how I talk to my own self, that inner dialogue. And then daily asking for help and creating a community that I really lean on today. Thank God I have a community.
Around what year did your journey start where you really dove in and broke yourself open?
That was 2017. So It's been 8 years. And everything changed, like really my whole life. I was working in restaurants, working in hospitality. I went to film school in Boston, Emerson College, and I thought I was going to make movies. And then I just was lost. I mean, rudderless is sort of the metaphor I'll use a lot, right? Just kind of going from one thing to the next, one relationship to the next, thinking, we make these geographical cures, thinking I'm just going to move to that new place and that's where I'll find my happiness, right? Turns out wherever I go, there I am.
Yep.
So I brought me with me everywhere I went and turned out that was not the answer. It is an inside job. And so it's been 8 years, but life has been completely different. Whole new career, absolutely passionate about the work I do. It wakes me up every morning to help people be that, whatever that looks like every day. So master's degree, and then now I'm finishing my PhD in psychology as well. I have 50 pages about to write left of my dissertation. in PhD.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
To be seeing the end of that road to the next chapter in just an advanced chapter in that book you've been writing of your life.
Yeah.
Well, they say the best person that you are positioned to help is people who struggle with the same things, your former self. So I think you're on the right track, and that helps you be more passionate about it as well.
100%. It's absolutely in alignment. And I think that's living a life with integrity, right? Like it's integrated. It's I know you, I am you. We're no different. And that's a huge understanding I started to see. Is like I started to see myself in others, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that all the separateness that I was feeling before was just such an illusion and such a block to growth and to connection.
You've worked with many different types of individuals, individuals in crisis, families in transition, and professionals running on empty.
Yeah.
What patterns do you see across all those settings?
This is the biggest block, like I was mentioning before, that I see happen over and over is stay away from me. I can do this myself. I don't need help from anybody. It's this notion that I'm an island unto myself. I'm gonna, I don't need you. I don't need anybody. And it's that vulnerability that is so scary to open up and say, I can't do this by myself. So that seems to be the biggest pattern. It's ego. When we were chatting earlier, you mentioned ego, which is really operating from I'll say like a small self, right?
Yeah.
Ego self is basically rooted in comparing, petty, jealousy, all of that, which we have such a comparing culture today. We're always comparing. We're always trying to keep up with the next person rather than just stay on the path and be genuinely, authentically us, no matter what.
Yeah.
And listen to our own intuition.
And if you don't know who you are, it's hard to be you.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the self-searching, the inner work is so important before you can really find the answers to those questions.
100%. So that's the patterns I would say really that I see tend to come up is I'm working with a couple different families right now. And it's really not being open to suggestions, not having the awareness that like my way is not working anymore. Like, what do you got? And that's that broken open part that I'm talking about where, and maybe is a really powerful word. It's like, it's just maybe my way is not working so well anymore. Maybe there's other solutions out there.
Yeah.
What do you got for me?
Maybe you should stop watching the news. Maybe you should stop listening to the negative people who surround you. Maybe you should lock yourself up somewhere for a while and do some self-searching.
Might work.
Yeah.
Because let's just check the patterns, right? Like let's go back and see like what has historically been working and what's not working.
Well, so if you're confronted with that frequently with these different peoples, and so in a world that often rewards perfection, how do you help people move toward honesty and healing?
I like to teach, because this is a part of kind of recovery from substance use issues too, the isms we talk about, like alcoholism, perfectionism. I like this, I like an acronym. So ISM, I've heard say it's an internal spiritual malady, right? And my lens is always through what I call like a psycho-spiritual approach. Now, spirituality very frequently gets mistaken with religion, right? Well, I'm not talking about religion. You can have a spiritual practice that you dedicate and commit your time to religiously, right? So that's just a daily practice,
right?
But quite different than religion. So I'm talking about a spiritual solution so that we have these sort of maladies that we carry around rooted in shame, stemming from traumas that we're not even aware are impacting us today, things that happened in the past, things that are chronically happening, smaller. We say in trauma therapy, like big T and small t trauma. So small t trauma would be relationships that are just never going how we would want them to. This sort of insecure attachment style, like please don't leave me. I don't know who I am without you, right? And that's tends to be some of those issues that come up, but the isms. So the perfectionism is just yet another internal spiritual malady where we're not able to fully like radically accept ourselves exactly as we are, who we are as a human being, a whole human that is flawed and makes mistakes, and we're capable of forgiving ourselves. And it's such a requirement to forgive ourselves. There's so much power in self-compassion and forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I think there's huge misunderstanding because we feel like if we are too easy on ourselves, like we won't be motivated. There's like this idea like if we just like push ourselves harder, or, you know, my friend has a tattoo that says, go one more, right? Which I get, you know, it's important to push yourself, but there's also, if you're too ashamed to look, to really put the mirror up, right? And look within, there's no capacity for change. And it keeps us stuck in shame. And you can see even different personality disorders, like narcissistic personality disorder is really rooted in shame. It's a shame-based disorder where I'm too scared to look. And so that's why you find people never able to accountability. They can't accept any accountability. It's never their fault. They're blaming everything and everyone around them. It's challenging. You know, I'm sure a lot of our listeners and people, you know, close to us have experienced this type of where you can never get like an I'm sorry, never responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah, and there's different forms of narcissism, and we could probably have a whole topic just on that. We'd still run out of time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's we all know at least one, even if we don't know it yet.
Yeah, but the thing is like to approach somebody like that with that kind of a condition from this place of compassion, knowing that they're just too scared to look, frees us up a bit. It allows us to kind of just alleviate, even just for a moment, right? The frustration and the anger that comes along with like, why can't you just admit that you're wrong, you know? And just be like, all right, well, you're in pain. Because everyone's just in pain. I love this thing. I say it all the time. All pain that is not transformed is transmitted. So people that are acting out in those types of ways are in pain and they're not able to see it and they aren't able to transform it in some way, in like a spiritual way, taking action, being of service, even exercise, even being in nature, all these different great coping skills, journaling, things that I teach people all the time to do. But it will be transmitted inevitably across the board. That pain will be transmitted onto the next person on their path.
So of these different techniques you have, what do you find one to be the most helpful in getting people to really open up?
Connection. This is about building community and having a reliable, like,
so first the connection with you.
Connection with yours. Yeah. It comes in a therapeutic lens. It's going to be this empathy and trust, right? That's built in that relationship, because obviously therapy can be very intimate. You share things with your therapist that, you know, you wouldn't have maybe never said before out loud, ever. So it becomes very emotionally intimate. And knowing that you might not see this yet in yourself, but trust that I do. I see the potential. I see this, the person that you were born to be. I say like the divine self, right? Not to get too kind of religious, that word divine, but or woo-woo. I try to make sure I'm not like too, because I'm really not. Like I really do view spiritual, like a spiritual practice as just a practical tool, grounded and rooted in the here and now, and being fully present to your life as it's unfolding and following different signs that might be around, but we have to be awake to kind of like see those.
Yes, as someone who speaks from experience, I think that people just have to start being comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's, you know, we search for comforts. If our life is stressed out, we go back right to the things that make us comfortable, which may be bad for our health, bad for our relationships, bad for our self-care, whatever the case is. So, well, so we'll talk some more about these encounters that you have. What are the most common things that professionals carry into your office, even if they can't name them at first?
Zero boundaries, the inability to say no, the desperate desire for approval, in so many different ways, so many facets of life, professionally, at home, in different types of relationships. It's like it becomes its own addiction, the addiction for approval from other people and society at large. So that tends to be it builds so much stress and anxiety in us that we're just never enough, never doing enough, never performing enough.
Well, boundaries is a really broad topic. The first time I was introduced to a book that used the word boundaries in the title, I was reading some things in there that I hadn't really, I think it was just called Boundaries, the book. And then now there's boundaries for leaders and different things. But it wasn't until then, a few years ago, that I started to really think about what a boundary looked like, because we know, or at least most of us have heard, it's okay to say no. But when you're the person that has to say no and you're a people pleaser, which some people are and don't realize it, sometimes it takes someone to make that observation and just tell them, this is what I'm observing, and that's where you come in, someone like yourself.
Yeah.
So that's good stuff.
I had to have somebody early on for me in my journey walk me through how to be direct and say, this is what I'd be like, I don't know what to say. I was so nervous, right? And she was a great model for me. She's like, you say ABC, this is what you say to me right now, right? And so that was important early on. I'll never forget that moment. I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry so much about what this person's feelings are in this. It's really about establishing how I need to protect myself. And that's
you had someone help you with that process.
I had to have somebody help me.
I think everybody needs multiple people over the course of their lives
team.
Because we change and our beliefs change for normal reasons. It's part of our evolution. And you have to be open to multiple different opinions, but you also have to be careful, not only the people you seek the advice from, but how frequently you seek it. Because after a while, if you're always unsure of the advice you get from let's say the 3 people or places you go to, then you're not going to make any progress because you're going to remain skeptical. You have to pick something and run with it.
Yeah, you do.
Right? You have to pick somebody to follow when it comes to politics, religion, spirituality, self-help, personal development. And if you get it wrong, it's okay.
Yeah.
You might pick the wrong something. And then you just have to keep doing it and you get better at it over time. And then you start to learn more about yourself in the process.
Yeah.
So
I listen for things that are intuitively, kind of perk me up. Like, oh, my ears perk up, right? I'll be like, that sounds interesting. I could probably use that, right?
Yeah.
And then practice. That's the big thing, right? It's not going to just come out of a book and then we just sort of by osmosis, now we have a new way of thinking, new way of living, right? Like this is daily effort, sustained, small changes. That's a huge thing to remember. This does not happen overnight. To gain any kind of traction, changes small. Big, overwhelming things that change don't tend to last. So we're talking about sustainable life changes. Like atomic habits obviously is like the biggest sort of thing that people are talking about lately, but it is really true to gain traction. It's small, these tiny victories, and then stay on the path. But you're right about the multiple sources. I can't just like go all in because, they're just another human too.
Yeah, and we're all flawed.
Yeah, they're just another human being too, doing the best they can.
Let's talk about boundaries a little bit more.
Yeah.
You say they're one of the most loving things we can do.
Yeah.
Right? Clear is kind. Can you explain that?
People who practice direct communication make you feel safe. And I'm sure we can all look at our families and our lives, and we have passive aggressive communicators, right? You're always trying to decipher exactly what they mean. They say one thing, kind of mean another. Their body language says something totally different than what their words are saying, and it's confusing and it doesn't feel safe. So people who are direct might feel, sometimes they use the word prickly or edgy, right? Like, oh, and then we're so accustomed to the people around us kind of placating, or the way that we communicate, or we had a mother growing up that were kind of sort of a placater, a people pleaser, right? And so that's just from our formative years, it's how we've learned to communicate. So that shift is huge when it comes to communicating in new ways to have different types of relationships. And so I remember when I first learned this, that people who are direct feel safe. And I went through my head and I'm like, that's really true. Like I've had different supervisors at work, right? Who you always knew where you stood. And there was moments where I was like, oh, ow, right? Because I'm not accustomed to, but then it's like, thank you. Thank you. That made me feel safe. You say what you mean what you say, you do what you say you're going to do. And so that's much healthier.
Why do you think that's so hard for us?
I don't know. It's so hard. Because we're addicted to approval, because we just want people to like us.
So there's conflict avoidance too.
Yes.
So if we deal with conflict in other areas of life that we don't necessarily control, and we can control how we communicate and how frequently, then I think it's a conflict avoidance is most of us what we're accustomed to. When 100%. I teach communication in my office to my team, and even to some people that I advise working through a death in the family or something, is communication creates conflict no matter what, because we're humans and we all have our own opinions.
Right.
But it's absolutely necessary, which means conflict is necessary.
Right.
So if you're not willing to confront that conflict and become comfortable with it, now conflict has such a negative connotation to it. You think war, fighting, and maybe you have bad conflict in your life.
Right.
But there's healthy conflict too.
Right.
And that's really hard to deal with for people that have sort of been kind of accustomed to the unhealthy type of conflict.
Right. But this is a skill that we can learn how to practice. So it's quite a bit, and this came up in lots of groups I've run before, the difference between assertive and aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So assertive means this is how I feel about it, but the way that you feel about it matters too, right? We can see both sides. We have some compassion. We see why they're kind of coming from the place that they are. Aggressive means this is it. Mine is the only opinion that matters. It doesn't have to be physically aggressive, but that's the shift. So when I say direct, I mean assertive. And you're so right. I mean, communication is essential. We are deeply social creatures, and anytime we try to think we can hack that, we lose.
Yeah.
We think we can just I have it happen so frequently with people I work with, my clients and whoever else in the community I'm helping. It's like, I don't need anybody, you do. And it is a deep need.
I feel empathy for the people who still feel that way, and I can't I can't even begin to try to measure it. I don't know if anyone has, but they do these surveys throughout the year that will gauge people's happiness, and you could see it's often correlated to what's on the news or what their daily habits are, and then if you want to change your outcome, you got to change your daily habits. So.
Input and output, what goes in comes out, and what we're consuming is all of that. What are you consuming? It's not food, right?
Yeah.
Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this, like the consumption of everything we see and hear, right? What are you listening to? What are you watching?
Yeah.
Who are you communicating with? Like, who are you choosing to kind of have in your world, Because we get to decide. That's what's so incredible about like chosen family. We have these families of origins that we have no say in, which create a whole world of conflict, and I'll be in business for a long time just based on like childhood stuff, right?
Yep.
That we carry with us. It's inevitable, right? But the chosen family is really important. Who we have as our friends, those are deep connections that we really need.
So you're dealing with people who are struggling with reaching out for help. They've started with you, they've come to you for help, so they know they need it, but they still having trouble opening up. And you're trained in helping these professionals process both trauma and high pressure lifestyles. How can someone tell the difference between needing a break and needing help?
That's a really good question. Severity of symptoms, I would probably say. How far down the scale or how bad off has it gotten really? When it comes to isolation, right? Are you not leaving the house for X amount of time and not talking to anybody? Pull the blinds, turn off the phone, nobody's getting through. That's a problem. You need help for sure, right? It's clear. And then you have that message coming from all the people that love you, right? Saying like, you need help. So break would be things are still afloat, so to speak, right? Job's okay. Family's all right, things like this. Like, I just need a break.
No one has told you need help yet.
No, that's a big sign right there. No one's come to you and said like, you need help, right? So if that's and you'll hear it. The messages are all around, right? People who care about you and know you pretty well, right? I'll be like, time to take a break. In my work, it's a clear lack of empathy, and this comes up for therapists a lot, where you just start to kind of perhaps like roll your eyes, right? And be like,
the patient?
You're dealing with somebody and it's chronic, right? And there's no breakthroughs being made. It's just, the behaviors are just continuing. When you're good, when as a therapist or anybody in the healing, helping arts, right? In medicine, ER nurses, things like this, right? These are high pressure, kind of like intense jobs. And when I worked at the crisis unit, I started really kind of learning about this. My reactions to the clients, if they became less than empathetic and compassionate, right? And it was like, all right, it's time to take a break. It's time to take a break. And for me, throughout the day, it would really, and I've trained people to do this as well, it's just as simple as take your shoes off and go walk in the grass. Like, and take a moment. We're talking 10 minutes to just like connect with something bigger. That's not all about like the human psyche all day long, because that gets to be a lot.
I run an office that a lot of what we do involves real estate transactions, and there's tense moments in a real estate or the evolution of a real estate transaction, and usually they're going to happen at the beginning stages during negotiations, after an inspection when something is found that makes the house less than perfect, which happens a lot here in Florida. And towards the closing, or between that beginning and the end, when they have some sort of remorse come up, or maybe they have a true thing come up. What I tell my staff when they're dealing with too many other people's fires at one time, which become theirs, their office becomes like a pressure cooker, where you have to release that pressure, which as soon as you do, you start to alleviate it. And that just means get up, walk around. That's why you were commenting on the stand-up desks I have around the office. Yep. That's one way to release the pressure. You keep the blood flowing, right? And you don't just stand up all day. That would be crazy. Although your cardiologist might tell you that's a good idea. And so you have to sit, stand, walk around, and go outside. One of the guests that I have, who I'll definitely have on here again, Dr. Chris Lee, he said, go out, take a 20-minute walk.
Yeah.
And when it's 95 degrees in Southwest Florida between July through August, with 95% humidity, that's really hard to do, especially if you're dressed for an inside job.
Right.
I am fortunate enough to be one of the lawyers that doesn't have to wear a suit to work. There's many in town that do, and then you have your insurance agents. And some of those jobs that require specific attire, they're the most stressful jobs to have.
Right.
So you can get a treadmill in your office that gets you moving,
That's
different
been
things.
Popular.
And look, if you walk outside and it gets too hot, just turn around and go back, and guarantee you're going to feel better than before you left.
It's a shift.
Release that pressure.
It creates like a shift in perspective, for sure.
Well, what are some emotional habits that help you stay grounded while helping others?
Meditation is key. I preach.
It's a shocker.
I preach this to everybody. I do Zen every Sunday. Sit with a Sangha, right? That's what we call our group, and we sit silently on our cushions for 30 minutes. That's been a practice since the beginning for me. That at the beginning, I was like, no way, this may work for you, but it ain't going to work for me, right?
And when you say the beginning, you mean pre-2017?
2017. Okay. So this is like in the dark.
Why didn't you think it would work for you at the time?
Because I was still stuck in this illusion of separateness. Like, I'm unique. We say in like recovery circles, terminally unique. Right? So
eventually you'll figure it out. By then you're going to die to yourself.
You're going to figure it out either way. Either you die first, hopefully you don't, right? Because you're so different. Nobody will ever understand you. Like, you can't possibly get where I'm coming from, right? Or you're going to wake up, right, and realize we're not that different. And we do understand each other in deep ways that we are scared to almost admit sometimes.
Now, this is good for our listeners, because Dr. Cohen, who we had on, talked about meditation. He said somebody once asked him, or told him, if you don't have 15 minutes a day to meditate, then you should be meditating for 30 minutes.
They say that a lot. It's like, you should do 30 minutes a day unless you're too busy, and then you should do an hour.
Yeah.
Right? I've heard
and
that
I read
before,
somewhere else that for every minute of meditation, you gain 7 to 9 minutes back of that day because of how more productive you're going to be. So let me ask you, how long did you have to practice before you started to realize that maybe this would work for you?
It was quick. It was pretty, I wouldn't, it happened pretty quickly for me just because I was open. I was desperate enough. We say that I do a lot of work, especially my dissertation, with like people's kind of relationship with the concept and image of, and the word God, right? Which is like this weird kind of 3-letter word that like creates some type of a visceral reaction for most human beings, right?
Especially if their therapist uses it.
Right? It's scary. It's a scary one. But I'm writing about it, I'm researching it, and it's super fascinating to me how people's reactions are to this word, right? Especially Buddhists. Actually, Buddhists don't ever say this word God. Like, there's one of my favorite books that I'm reading, Brad Warner. It's called "There Is No God and He Is Always With You." Right? So it's great. But I love, so for me, it was pretty quick just because I was attracted to what the people had who did this practice, right? So I could see that they seemed to have a sense of ease and comfort. They seemed to not take things too seriously. They seemed to be able to laugh at themselves when they made mistakes, right?
Okay.
When they had this kind of dedicated practice. And they started to teach me these that this type of a practice, daily effort into this, creates space between stimulus, something that's happening, and my response to it. And within even a second of space between my reaction to something happening, that's a world of change right there. Not having to be so reactive all the time to everything that's happening around me, knowing that like I get to choose how I respond.
And obviously meditating for only a second wouldn't do you much good.
No.
But I think that's a good example to use. They say you should start slow, start with 1 to 5 minutes, or some people say start with 10. And if your head, the voices in your head are racing, that's okay. They call it the practice of meditation for a reason, because nobody is going to, you're working closer to enlightenment over years and years, or whatever you want to call it. How long did it take for you to really make daily meditation a habit for you? And what are some of the things you did to stick with that?
I like to sit in the mornings. That's not an everyday thing. This ebbs and flows. I can't sit here and say, I sit 30 minutes every morning. I really wish
I'm sure your kids don't let you sit for too long on certain days.
No, not at all. So, life is busy, all of that. But what I really love, I don't know if I should say, I love Sam Harris. I think he's awesome. Waking Up was one of my favorite books I've read in the past, and Finding Spirituality Without Religion. He's great. And his app, Waking Up, I'll do like a 20-minute with him every day. I've been doing that every day. That's been a part of my practice lately. But in general, like I said, so every Sunday, that's definitely a commitment I make to do 30 minutes Zazen on my cushion. And it doesn't last, or I can't go into it thinking that I'm good now, right? I did my meditation because I could very easily get right off my cushion and be annoyed or frustrated at something, at traffic,
That's
or
good. That's a good
text
point.
message. So it's about mindfully living, right? I mean, really being aware of what's coming up for me right now, right? Naming whatever emotions arising in the moment. So that self-awareness is what has brought about the most change through a meditation practice. And it's really about, when you're talking about the amount of time, it's not about if you have 5 minutes, it's about getting into position. For us, for most people, it's really spine straight, hands in a certain fashion, right? And then just that is really it. And remembering that, letting go of any expectations about what it should be or what it should feel like. I hear this all the time. I just can't clear my mind. Your brain is of the nature to pump thoughts, like your heart pumps blood. That is across the board for every human being. You will never stop your thoughts, right? They're going to keep coming. It's how we react to the thoughts. It's, I mentioned this at a thing I was at earlier about, don't believe everything you think. There's this, don't believe everything you think, right? Because we think we have to buy into every single thought, and your brain is just pumping thoughts. Sometimes they're just really out of the blue. I'm sure we've all noticed once you start paying attention to what you're really thinking about. Because I don't know if a lot of times, until you have this ability for a little bit of self-reflection and seeing it's this reflecting back on who is the one thinking, who is the one watching, and being more a witness of it rather than buying into all of it, creates space.
Well, let's talk relationships. So business, family, friendships, all kinds. Where do people get stuck most often in those relationships?
Thinking they can make anybody happy.
Okay, so the people pleasers think that they can make everybody happy in business, family, and friendships.
Yeah.
And then that seems like it's related to, setting boundaries and saying no as well. The people that think they can make everything happy will not take it upon themselves to say no to somebody if they think it's going to make them unhappy.
Right.
Or they might not set a boundary to not take that person's call after certain hours of the day, whether it's, it could be family, friends, or business related.
Yeah. Thinking we have any kind of control, really, that's such an illusion too. I'm talking about the illusion of separateness, thinking we're so different and thinking that we have any kind of control.
Well, let's talk kids for a second, because you have some, I have some, many people watching have some. I have tried to be more intentional with at least with both my boys, to stop trying to control them on the spot. And I use that as an example because it's really, really hard. And I imagine other people have trouble doing this, where we want our kids to listen as soon as we start speaking. And let's be honest, how often does that happen?
No.
And when it does, you're like, holy cow, did that actually happen? And then you don't want to believe it, and you go right back to saying what you we're thinking or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You never listen to me. You're always doing that.
Never and always. Watch those words.
Yeah.
Yep.
I need you to shut up now and look at me. Right? Go do what I asked you to do.
Yeah.
So what are some things you've done over the years with your children to sort of control them without trying to directly control them? I know it's kind of a curveball here, but I mean,
honestly, oh God, I have a pretty hands-off approach to parenting. I'm not going to lie. I literally years and years ago heard Dr. Phil on the Dr. Phil show say, we're not raising kids, we're raising adults, right? And I hung on to that forever because I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I don't want to raise a human who is so overly dependent on me, right? So I'm trying to create functional, healthy, well-adjusted, eventual adults, right? My son doesn't listen for anything. I mean, he's a teenager, and it's like we were talking about earlier. I mean, it's everything I have to get him to pay attention for a second. And the effort comes in my reaction every time. So saying it's not about, okay, so the way I communicate is going to be hopefully, right, direct, honest, loving, compassionate. Hopefully. But we fall short so often. I don't know if anybody's like me, but I fall short so frequently when exactly what you're saying, this need to control crops up, which it just does all the time. So that's where the practice comes in, right? That's where the kind of acceptance of this as being, acceptance of him as a teenage boy, and maybe even remembering me as a teenager and how often I listened to my mom. That brings a little compassion into the situation, even for a second, right? And it goes on, and it's a cycle, and I absolutely understand that. But as long as then I can at least come to a place of maybe a little bit, just a second, a little bit more compassion, then I don't have to berate or pick on anymore, and let it go a little bit, right? Because I really have no say necessarily in a lot of it. I do as a parent, right? We have to raise kids. We have to make sure they're doing well and everything we can to contribute to their, growth. And at the same time, I always say it's really about show up and let go. So we show up for them. We're present for them fully in every moment. We show up in every way we possibly can. And in equal measure, which is the hardest part, is let go. It's show up and let go.
Well, so speaking of letting go, I mean, that I think is one of the possible answers to this next question I had for you. It's how can leaders or professionals create more emotional safety in their homes or their workplaces?
Well, I guess it does translate, doesn't it? Home and workplace pretty frequently.
Well, we often spend more time in our workplace than we do at home.
Yeah, we do. So this is, the question was emotional safety. That's an interesting phrase. I think it goes back to being direct, like we were talking about before, having clear lines of communication, open doors, and then being clear about, I'm not comfortable doing that right now. No being a complete sentence, right? But also, I get that no is a complete sentence, but it's also people do deserve kind of maybe some type of an explanation but being really honest to, with some parameters. Right, because it's not about just sharing everything going on. Right, we got to be really kind of selective and intentional.
That's
about
really
who we're
good.
Being clear with.
I'm glad you made that point because you can overshare.
Oh yeah,
and that is just as debilitating as undersharing, and it's hard to find that happy median. But I think walking in humility is one word that can describe what you were just saying. Being vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you're an employer or the man or woman of the house, and you have people that you want to open up to you and have a safe space, you need to demonstrate to them what you're expecting of them.
Yeah, that oversharing thing really tends to be a trauma response, honestly. People who are so kind of desperate for connection, and we may be able to kind of run through our mind and know people like this. And that comes, there are ways to work through that. It starts with awareness, right? And that whole thing that we talked about in the beginning, asking for help. And if you find that you have people kind of walking away when you're, or you see the expression on their faces as being right? Why are you sharing this with me right now? Those social cues, if you kind of pay attention to those, that might be another sign to just understand that could be stemming from some type of trauma, small, or deep, right?
And just be open to it.
Be open to asking
the
for help for
possibility.
that.
Maybe I have some trauma that I'm
Maybe
dealing
there's some
with.
stuff I gotta like go deal with, right? And that is really everything right there, is sort of having the awareness to ask for help.
Well, do people there's one barrier to get past of being comfortable asking for help and opening up. But then there's this other barrier of people I hear make excuses. Oh, I can't afford to see a therapist.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
And I'd encourage people that are on that train to, if you don't have an insurance that's going to cover it, pay out of pocket for a session and see if you get anything out of it. And then do a cost-benefit analysis over time.
Right.
I mean, look, we spend so much money on things that we truly don't need or that would really benefit us that maybe is just fueling the problem, whether it's an addiction or whatnot.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be so much better to become addicted to therapy?
Yeah.
Or meditation as a form of therapy?
This is about priorities. This is absolutely about priorities. Mental health is health. That is our health. I've seen it over and over and over again, people who otherwise are physically in great shape, right? But their relationships are failing. The way that they're talking to themselves is clearly not healthy, right? You can just sense it, the way they're kind of putting themselves down or addicted to certain things, which that comes in so many forms. These behavioral addictions, I think a lot of times we think like it's just drugs and alcohol. It's like, nah, it's social media, it's shopping, it's sex, it's like this total codependency coming thugh in different relationships.
You can also have a habit buying things.
I
don't know what that's called. A habitual shopper?
Shopaholic?
Shopaholic?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the easy one,
yeah,
right?
It happens a lot.
Well, so you're a fan of radical honesty and real presence.
Totally.
What does that look like in everyday life?
That's a really good question. It looks like it looks different for everybody, right? Somebody, I don't know, I was talking to this person the other day, and they were saying, what do the greatest figures in history, what do they have in common? And the answer is nothing, because they were so unapologetically themselves. There's no way that you could compare like one to the other. If you look at like the great sort of names throughout history that we all kind of remember, right? Like what's their legacy? Their legacy is like they were totally, completely themselves, like did not question, right? They probably did, they're human beings, right? But I'm saying like they just went ahead and did it anyway because like they trusted their gut, right? So you can really tell obviously when you're talking to somebody and they're fully there. You're here with me right now. I can tell that, right? It's not even about like just not on their phone. Obviously that's a huge sign, right? They're literally not even like making eye contact.
Yeah, it's like,
with you.
no, I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, right.
I promise you, I can hear everything you're saying.
That is not a way to be present with somebody, right? And it does not bring about connection. So, but this is what we're talking about, right? When you're fully here, because you can also be having a conversation with somebody and we're making eye contact, right? But you can just kind of tell they're not really there.
How do you handle when a patient brings their phone out in session?
Oh, no. I don't really have that issue anymore, but ever since I stopped doing like group therapy in like a residential treatment setting where people were court mandated, right? The people I work with today are actually looking for assistance. They're looking for help.
Well, it's one thing to put your phone in your pocket or even face down on a table, and then it's another thing yet to silence it.
Yeah.
But that distraction itself, there's this book that I'm thinking of called, Lori Gottlieb is the author. It's called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone.
Oh, yeah? I don't know that one.
And one of the things that she does real well in this book, it's from 2022, still relatively new, and maybe it's even newer than that, but she has all of her patients, she has like 5 or 6 patients that she meets with, and there's this one Hollywood executive that every time he comes in, he's dealing with all those, he's the poster child of narcissistic over people pleaser, but doesn't give a damn about anybody, and he's important. So he has his cell phone out almost every session. And he's like, I gotta respond to this right now. And he doesn't have that boundary established yet to when he's in that. And she basically said, look, this is not gonna work.
No.
And it ended up making him more interested in continuing to see her. But there was often examples sprinkled about the inner dialogue with herself while she's also seeing a therapist, and the patients themselves, where she intertwines their stories with hers and she shows you what's on her mind. And it's a really good book. Highly recommend it.
It's called You Should Talk to Somebody?
Yeah. And then it's actually, I believe it's a new view from a book that was written even longer ago that was, I think it was designed for men, that said, the title of it was, I don't want to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. And then she writes this book 10 or 20 years later, says, well, maybe you should talk to somebody. And I think that if anyone's listening that likes new books, Lori Gottlieb, hopefully I'm getting her last name right, but it's definitely Lori something. And it's called Maybe You Should Talk to Somebody. And after I got hooked at reading it, after I finished, I realized that maybe I should talk to somebody too. Maybe. And then maybe everybody I talk to should be more open to talking to somebody.
Yeah, so maybe.
Thought I'd throw that out there.
Love it.
All right, so I'm going to start wrapping up. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you don't overthink the response, but first thing that comes to mind.
Sure.
So what's one belief about therapy or emotional health that more people need to hear?
That it's available to everybody in different ways. It doesn't have to just be about money. There are other ways. Like this can be, it's a broad spectrum of ways to connect and find solutions.
And where might someone go if they don't know where to start?
Well,
looking for that right place for them.
Yeah. I hate to say online, but it is such a pervasive platform that we all have in our hands throughout the day, all day. So there's different forums online that you can kind of connect with for sure, but also like down the street, like everyone's got something in their community. We were talking about different places that we know of in our local community that we can go check in and just walk through the door, making the effort, to just like get up and go check these different places out for sure.
So just start.
But the beach. This is what we take about. This is like a meditation practice too. There's 2 rules. It's to begin and continue. Like those are the 2 rules. So make a beginning and then continue.
That's good stuff. Mm-hmm. When you think about wellness, what does that word mean to you personally?
I tend to go to these 8 dimensions of wellness, which is how sort of a holistic, right? This is a holistic approach. There's many sort of facets of this. It's not just I work out every day, go to the gym, right? Or I just do a lot of reading, or I'm not drinking anymore, so I'm just gonna like put the drink down and like I don't have any other really, this is holistic in life. So it's multifaceted. There's environmental wellness, there's emotional wellness, there's physical wellness, there's spiritual wellness, there's so it's a great little wheel. It's easy. It's accessible for anybody online. It's just the 8 dimensions of wellness. And to really check in with yourself, where you're at. I use the analogy of like, filling up your cup. Like, is your cup filled, right? Or watering a garden, right? So this is tending to this garden daily. This is daily effort. It doesn't take a whole lot of work. It's just being kind of mindful about where you're at in these different dimensions. I like that wellness approach in a holistic way.
Yeah, I tend to have leaned towards that, but I haven't always led towards that. Mm-hmm. Usually you lead towards one that thinks it's going to make you more healthy by starting or stopping something that you know is unhealthy, but you're not necessarily trying to cover it all.
Yeah.
All right, so here's some quick hits. What's one book, quote, or habit, or even a playlist that helps you reset?
That Sam Harris Waking Up app that I mentioned earlier, that's what I've been really into lately. I have it for years, but like lately, that's been my daily kind of go-to. It really helps me start my day over. Okay. Like it'll be like a mid-afternoon. I'm up early. I'm an early riser. I'm really best in the mornings. And then I kind of lose some steam like afternoon a bit. Mm-hmm. So I'll put on my like 20-minute Sam Harris Waking Up app. That's kind of my plug for that.
I'll have to try it now.
So he's great.
All right. So thank you for those answers, by the way. I know you weren't sure what to expect coming on today, and I asked you some questions. You kind of, a couple curveballs there, so I think you've handled real well. If you had 30 seconds to speak into the heart of someone listening right now, someone successful on paper but silently struggling, what would you want them to know? And you can even tell them right in that camera.
I would just want to remind them that they're not alone and that we're far more similar than we are different, and there's help waiting for you, people with open arms looking to hear you, see you, understand you. Reaching out is really the hardest part. The benefits that come after that are limitless.
Well, thank you for that. So if this conversation resonated with you or reminded you that it's okay to not be okay, then I encourage you to reach out, talk to someone, and take the next step And Britten, I thank you for your voice and your work and for reminding us that resilience isn't about having it all together. It's about willing to be real. How can people find you?
So I started a practice called Spacious Mind Integrative Health. That's spaciousmind.org. And I have an office over in East Naples on Linwood.
Okay.
It's right across from Opera Naples, but it's just getting up and running. So I do that. Everything, all the information's on my website too. So
All the contact info. Okay.
Contact
Are you
info.
on any social media channels where they can find you?
Instagram is Spacious Mind Therapy, and then I'm working on some other things. But my Instagram, the professional page, I'm definitely getting up and running. So it's all a process.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really, I appreciate it. It's been an
problem.
honor.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon then.
Thanks.
Thanks.